The parents cried their eyes out as the fox returned the favor for saving him. Many people love nature, and when there is that small opportunity to be there, they travel to be able to breathe the fresh air and listen to the sounds of the animals. My wife and son wanted to go to a village. We had rented a cabin near a river. It was a very good opportunity to fish and have a good time as a family. My son had long asked to go, so he was the happiest on this short vacation we would have. I knew the places we were going to when I was little because my grandparents lived there. I felt good between the smell of the trees and the tranquility. There was no price for this moment. However, due to an economic crisis, my grandparents were forced to sell the house and went to live in the city with us and died there. That's the bad thing about this world. One day, we have to leave. So before we left for town, we planned the places where we would stop on the road to rest, eat, and take some pictures. We also packed all the necessary things and finally set out on the trip. We left very early. There was a lot of traffic, but we were able to get out of town. The weather was excellent. My wife was next to me, my little boy in the back, watching all the scenery through the window. We passed forest after forest and small settlements every few miles, stopping at a few places just as we said we would. Finally, night fell, and we were still 2 hours away from our destination. My son fell asleep, but suddenly it started to rain, and I had to go slowly. However, my wife asked me to stop and said, "Our son is not wearing his seatbelt." I got out of the car to put it on, and before getting back in the car, I saw out of the corner of my eye on the side of the road that an animal was lying in the mud. I couldn't even see what it was. I couldn't make out its color, so I approached out of curiosity and realized it was a small fox. It looked like it had been run over recently. It was all wet from the rain, but I had to get back to the car. However, a question crossed my mind. How could I let it die? Sometimes I don't understand people's actions. How could they run over and leave the animal there suffering? Poor thing. Its eyes were slowly opening and closing. Although it was still breathing, its condition was very deplorable. My wife came closer. We were looking at each other and didn't know what to do. Suddenly, the car door opened. Our son ran past us, stood very close to the fox, and started stroking its head. "We can hardly do anything for him," I told them. Then my son had a reaction we never saw from him before, a look that seemed like that of an adult. He said he would not leave him here, in all seriousness. "The nearest vet is pretty far away, so maybe someone in town knows how to help us. I have a blanket in the car," my wife said, and then we gently placed the animal on the back seat. My son got in there too, resting the fox's head in his lap and petting it. I had to go a little faster, as far as I could afford the road. When we finally reached the village, we asked a person walking around if there was a veterinarian. She sent us to an old lady's house. She said she was the only one who could help us in this situation. We went quickly, and luckily the light in the woman's house was still on. I ran out of the car and knocked on the door. After some time, we heard the sound of footsteps approaching, and then the door opening. "Yes?" said the grandmother. We showed the fox. "Madam, help us. They sent me to you. They said only you can help us with this poor animal." After looking at the fox, Grandma quickly asked me to take it to a table she had in her house. She began to examine it very closely, then took out a bag containing various herbs and other medicine that I had never seen before. Suddenly she said, "The fox has a broken leg. Most likely it could die and also have a concussion. It will be a very complicated situation." And she also told us, "It's good that they brought him in time. Please, I need you to bring me some clean water. There is a small stream in the back. Take those buckets that are there, and when you come back, leave them at the door, then go to rest and come back in 2 days, please." Of course, we were surprised that Grandma trusted her words so much, but we decided to listen to her. We brought him water and left him at home as she had requested. Then we begged our son to come with us. He was all the time by the fox's side. The truth is that I had the impression that Grandma was waiting for us. She seemed to know we were coming. It was already very late, and her light was still on, and she had everything at hand. Finally, we arrived at the cabin, very tired. We sent our son to sleep. My wife and I sat on the terrace and only thought about that poor fox. Will he be alright? We wondered. The next day, no one was in the mood to go out fishing or for a walk. All the time we were impatient, and so the 2 days passed. At 5 in the morning, our son woke us up. We explained that it was too early to go. He puffed out his cheeks and went to sit outside the cabin. A couple of hours later, and after breakfast, we went to the old lady's house. We knocked on her door, but she wouldn't come out. We knocked some more, and suddenly she appeared. Apparently she didn't hear our knock at first. "You are just in time," said the old lady. "Come with me." So we approached, and there was the little fox. His paw had a bandage on it, and truth be told, he looked much better, but it was obvious he was still very weak. When he saw my son, he wagged his tail slightly like a dog. My little guy approached him, greeted him, sat down next to him, gently stroking his head. "Of course, your fox will recover," Grandma started the conversation, "but he won't be able to live in the wild like he did before. His fracture will need care for a long time, so he can heal, and he won't get out of the house for a long time. You have to decide what to do with him, and by the way, it's no accident that he got in your way." She looked at my son and said, "The fox and he have a common destiny. Somehow they are connected. You cannot ruin this connection, otherwise a misfortune could happen." My wife and I looked at each other, but amazed at the same time. Well, we said no more. Maybe it's true. "Well, take it and take care of it," Grandma said, handing us some herbs in bags with a paper written on it, telling how to mix and on what schedule to give her the natural medicine. I took the bags and handed her money in return. As a thank you, it seemed right to do that. The old woman immediately declined and said it was not necessary. "Just visit me as soon as you can. I would love to hear from you again." And that was how we said goodbye. We went home. Fortunately, the road was good, and we started taking care of him. My son was the one who spent most of the time by his side. They had become very good friends. He called him Rojo because of the almost reddish color of his fur. He learned to coexist with us, although sometimes he was aggressive, but with our son, he was not. Some time passed, and we decided to go back to that town, and we were on our way again in our car, only now we had one more member of the family with us. We arrived without incident and went to visit the old lady. The fox recognized the lady and ran to her quickly. Then we went to the cabin. My wife and I were busy making something to eat when suddenly I noticed Rojo with our son outside playing, but he jumped on my boy and knocked him to the ground. I ran towards them, yelling at the fox to let him go. However, when I got closer, I saw that all was well with my son. He sat up and looked at the fox in surprise, and when I turned to Rojo, I noticed that he was on the ground in agony and a dead snake in his mouth. Rojo eventually died, but his little face showed a lot of gratitude. It turns out that he saved my son, and then the whole puzzle began to take shape in my thoughts. I then remembered the old woman's words, that their fates were connected. We saved him, and then he saved our son. If we had left him, perhaps he would have died alone, and so would my son. We all cried when we learned that Rojo had passed away, but he gave his life to the one who once saved his. Apparently, his life mission had been completed, because we all have a mission. Ours was to save him, and then he saved us. Undoubtedly, a touching story that surely teaches us many things, among them true friendship. Thanks for listening until the end. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and click on the little bell so you don't miss a new video. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time!